Welcome back to the Nullified Take channel here on YouTube, where we've got the TNT takes for you on Australian Survivor Heroes vs Villains, episode 12. That's right, I am back. For those that have been waiting for this episode 12 top 5 takes, I do apologize. I had a lot going on in my personal life this week, and it sort of delayed when I could record this video. But I do want to thank everybody that did reach out to say personal life comes first and then do the YouTube stuff. But I really hate letting you guys down because I've really enjoyed the feedback you've been giving me after each one of these episodes as we watch them together and enjoy what is becoming very quickly a memorable season. So let's get into the top 5 takes here for episode 12. Now, takeaway number 1 is that this George versus Simon rivalry, which is one of the biggest storylines of the season, continues, and it is pretty damn entertaining to watch. Now, George, he keeps throwing Simon under the bus in this episode. At camp, after the vote, he really rubs it in with Flick, saying, I can't believe that Simon did this to you. Like, he kind of rubs it in like Simon definitely did this deliberately. I think George maybe thinks that Simon did it deliberately at this point as well, but he knows that he needs to continue to drive that wedge between Flick and Simon because Simon is starting to get close to the boys as per the information they're getting from Liz on the other side, and that could be a very big problem when it comes to numbers at the merge. So playing the game very good here. He also goes after Simon at the reward challenge where they have to compete, and he tries to drive a wedge between Sean and Simon by saying, I can't believe Simon did this. He stitched up your girl Flick by giving her a fake idol, and Simon is beyond shocked. He's got the best facial expressions this season. I've really been enjoying seeing it, but he says, I don't know what the hell is going on, and George keeps rubbing it and saying, that's clear and evident for everybody to see, with Shawnee sort of struggling to contain herself in the back, wanting to laugh at that comment. But, you know, at the end of the day, he does rub it in with Sean as well, and he says that, Sean, you've now been fooled twice by a fake idol. So obviously when you play the game of Survivor and somebody has had one over you in a season, I think that that is a wound that takes a long time to heal. And for Sean, there must be some insecurity about the fact that David gave him a fake idol in his original season. So that coming back to haunt him again can't feel good. And I think that it's also clouding Sean's judgment later in this episode when he is ready to just cut ties with a potential number in the game. So well done to George, playing a very high-end psychological warfare type of game. But I do again question if George has a real chance of winning this game if he gets to the end, because he is playing this game like a bulldozer. He only knows how to go at 120 miles an hour. He does not know how to follow the speed limits. And I think that could come back at the end when the traffic cop is there and they need to hand out some tickets. He might be due a few tickets if he gets to the end, and I don't know if he's actually going to win this season. Now, takeaway number 2, Simon is in deep trouble, and it's evident for everybody to see. After being called out by George and this fake idol thing blowing up in his face, he now has limited options because none of George's crew, the Spice Girls or the New Heroes tribe, really want to work with him. But the Supervillains tribe has people that he started building these bonds and relationships with over the last couple of episodes, and Haley and Sean, they're starting to turn their back on him as well. And he knows that he is in that trouble, and that's going to follow him throughout this episode. In the live recap and podcast that we did this week, we had someone in our live chat compare him to Owen from Survivor 43, for those who do watch Survivor US as well. And I kind of agree with that because Simon is this big fan, just like Owen was, of the show. He came onto the season thinking that he was going to be able to run a lot of the votes. He was going to be able to impose his strategic will on the game. And everything he's done so far has just turned to custard. I don't know if that's a saying that you guys use over there in the US, but it's basically things are falling apart. And you know, I do feel very bad for Simon in some ways because of this, but hell, it's entertaining to watch his game sort of crumble. It is an entertaining character that we have on the show, and I don't think we've ever had a Simon on Australian Survivor. And I don't think that we ever will have another Simon on Australian Survivor. So by that account alone, Simon is memorable enough to come back for a future season, because this season is not his. He's not winning it. Even if he does get to the end of this season, which, let's be honest, if anybody is smart, they should start thinking about using Simon as a number in the game and dragging him towards the end, because I do think he would not get a vote at this stage. Like, there's still a lot of runway left, and he could still turn his game into something magical, but it will be hard to forget how much he's blundered prior to the merge at this stage. Another one here is that in this episode, Simon does try to let everybody know that he didn't know that it was a fake immunity idol. He does ask JLP to confirm this at Tribal Council, and a lot of people were upset about the fact that JLP did confirm it. I don't have a problem with JLP confirming that it wasn't an idol and there was a clue to an idol. I think he maybe went a step too far when he said the clue for the idol would have led you to a coconut that had the idol in it, because Hayley, being smart like she is, she puts two and two together and says, well, in that case, it means someone's already found that idol, because otherwise she wouldn't have told us that. So maybe he got a little bit too ahead of himself by saying that, but I didn't mind the first part and him confirming that, yeah, that was just the clue that led to an idol to give Simon some clarity in the game, and it does kind of give Simon an alibi that, listen, this was something. It wasn't just something that he made up from his end, but they should have known this in any case, because it looked pretty legit, like it was made from production and not something that Simon would have been able to make himself. Lastly, on Simon does make a critical mistake by sitting out of the immunity challenge. An immunity challenge, in my mind, that he should have won. He should have known there's a good chance he's at the bottom, that he would go home next, and that Liz has got an idol which is public and everybody knows about it. So him sitting out of that challenge, not trying to at least win his heat, to me wasn't great. And maybe he did it to show that he's got trust in them. I get that. But his life in the game hanged in a thread at that point, and if it wasn't for production doing certain shenanigans throughout this episode and players trying to make a big move, he could have very easily seen himself go home in this episode. Moving on to one of those elements, Nina emerges from the shadows and wants to make a big move. We saw a little bit more of Nina, so I've got a feeling as the game progresses, she's going to start becoming more and more of an active player and wanting to direct where the strategy goes. She wants to make a big move on the queen of Australian Survivor for this season, and that is Hayley, the only returnee in the game that has nearly snuck her way into merge. I feel like Hayley's strategy of laying low and just being forgotten and that people don't think of her as a player has worked to a certain degree up until this point, but Nina is very aware that Hayley is dangerous and someone that they need to take care of in the game, and when she finds out that they're going to put some votes on Sam again as the scapegoat in case both Simon and Liz plays their idols, or Simon may have an idol that they're not aware of, that would mean that Sam would go home, and it doesn't sit well with Nina, who have just made an alliance with Sam and also with David. David's number one is Sam, and vice versa, but they've got each other. You guys know what I mean. Those three are tight, thick as thieves. They've got Liz coming in, great gameplay to get the number that's on the outs in with them, and they're going to make this move only to be stopped by production, which I know a lot of fans were not happy about, and they felt like Hayley was protected in this episode. Now, I personally don't think production went out of their way to choose which episode they were going to go and save Hayley on. I do think that this twist was always going to come because it's Australian Survivor. People do not go home at times, and I've seen worse twists for non-elimination episodes than this one, so I kind of understand that when I'm watching Australian Survivor, maybe I don't like it, but I've gotten used to the fact that this is what they do. Now, let's talk about that twist. So it's the Mutiny twist, and that's my next takeaway. The Mutiny twist scrambles things around a little bit here. I love the Mutiny. I still remember the iconic moment when Candace and Jonathan Penner went from their tribe to the other tribe, leaving 4 or 5 players in that tribe together to fight it out, becoming the ultimate underdogs that season. And it was such a legendary twist that I feel like Survivor does not bring back enough. And I was so happy to see it come back in this Tribal Council. And I also even liked the way that they did this twist, because they got in there, they were going to vote, and then they're like, nope, we've got the other tribe coming in, and everybody's like, okay, cool, what's happening? Does the other tribe get to vote as well? Do they get to save someone, like what we always see on these types of twists in Survivor? But no, it's a Mutiny twist, which they have to write their own name down if they want to go over to the other side. And I've always wondered, what would have happened back in the day when Candace and Jonathan Penner, moved over? It wouldn't have been in their interest, but what would have happened if, like, a majority alliance tribe, a tribe that is ahead in numbers to the tribe that has got a minority, just decide, hey, why don't we all just mutiny and force the merge while we've got the numbers, and we'll just obliterate the other tribe? But they have thought through this potential, and they said in this episode that if everybody wants to mutiny, we'll have a rock draw. If no one wants to mutiny, we'll have a rock draw. If more than one person wants to mutiny, we'll have a rock draw. The only way that someone's going over is there's going to be one person in this mutiny that's going to go to the other side. So that made it quite interesting, and it also made it interesting to see who would potentially take up this opportunity to go over there. And Sean tried to egg Simon on, saying, hey, go over there and get your boy Stevie away from that George alliance, which by now Simon should know he does not have Stevie in his pocket. And I thought for a second Simon was going to listen to Sean and do that, which would have been crazy if he went in there with both Flick and George ready to cut off his head. So he'd make the right decision not going there. But Liz does decide to go over there, which was a little bit shocking as well to a certain degree, because I felt like she had a really good alliance. She's potentially letting 3 people down, where they now have the numbers in that tribe 4-3. And now it's becoming a 3-3 situation that could put a lot of pressure on that alliance if they were to go back to a tribal council again. But in hindsight, I think Liz did make the right decision to go over there. And we'll move into takeaway number 5. Liz had a big week this week, and this was really her coming out week. She's either going to be a massive character, be the center of a lot of things going into the merge, or she could go all the way if she makes it to the end. But she can't sit next to a Shawnee. Maybe she could still be George because of the reasons I spoke of earlier and him being a bit abrasive. But I feel like Shawnee is going to be her biggest threat in the game. And at some point, if those two want to progress within the game, they might have to make a decision on each other. More so, she has to make a decision on Shawnee than Shawnee having to make a decision on her. Because I think Shawnee's social game could win her the game pretty easily against anyone. But, you know, she lost Geordie this week. She gained an idol this week and a hidden alliance. And this hidden alliance is really the thing that I think is going to build Liz's game going into the merge, because with this hidden alliance, she now has become the central point for 2 big alliances that could come together to take out people that are not in that alliance. And it makes a hell of a lot of sense to me, because the people who are not within the Spice Girls core and within this Liz hidden alliance, I feel like have had lesser edit compared to some of the players that are in these 2 groups. So when you think about that, Sean's the biggest number there. He may even get blindsided with an idol. I think if Haley gets blindsided before him, he's going to be a lot more aware that votes could come his way, and he could use that idol effectively to save himself. But it's going to be exciting to see her become this player that is going to drive decisions. And we see in the next on Survivor that her and George are going to have like a bit of a disagreement about where they should go when they get to the merge, because she's now got her built-in numbers and he's got his built-in numbers, but he also wants to work with Queen Haley, which I think is a mistake from his end, because Haley has never shown in this game that she wanted to work with George. So I feel like Haley is George's kryptonite at this stage, and he sees loyalty from outside of the game that she does not see within the game. So that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. That's my top 5 takes for this episode. If you like this type of content, you want to see more of it in the future, consider subscribing, hitting the like button, and hitting the notification bell so that you know when I go live for any of my live podcasts or when one of these videos drop. Please comment below. I love reading those comments. I love interacting with you, and it does help with the YouTube algorithm as well. Thank you so much, guys. For now, grab your torches, head back to camp. I'll talk to you next time. Bye.